57taught.com. Gary Cubetta back in Scottsdale, Arizona. With me today, the great Paul Orndorff from Georgia. Paul, pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you, Gary. I'm glad to be here.
Paul, many people might not realize this, but you started off in pro football. You played with the Saints and the Chiefs, and then you went to the World Football League with the Jacksonville Sharks in 1975. What position did you play?
I was a fullback. I should have been a linebacker, but fullback because I could block. I was a good blocker, and if they wanted 3 yards, they got 3 yards. And I had good hands, but my skill really was blocking. I used to like to block.
And the WFL only lasted 2 years. You played in WFL 2. They folded midway through the season. Do you have any memories of that?
No, not really. It just, I don't even know why I did it. My heart really wasn't in it. I just did it for the money, and you can't do something for the money. You got to do it for the love, and that's why I did so well in wrestling, because I loved it, and I had a passion for it. I knew that I'd make it. One day I'd make it big if I'd gotten it, if I got the chance, and I got the chance.
I remember back in the late 70s, you went into the Mid-Atlantic territory, which was red hot at the time. You were instantly on top or close to being on top. Is there a reason you were able to adjust so quickly?
Well, at that time, I was still learning. I was up in Kansas City, and I'd only been in the business, I don't know, maybe 8 months, something like that. And I went to Kansas, and I was there, and that's when George Scott was at St. Louis, the big arena, and every week or every month, I think, they had a great big show in St. Louis at the, I believe it was the Checker Dome. I'm not sure about that, but the big arena there. And they would bring in, every month, they would bring in really big names, and George Scott was there, and after my match, he came up to me and asked me if I'd like to come to Charlotte, and I said, yeah, but I just got here. I mean, I'd only been there, like I said, two or 3 weeks, and he said I could take care of that, and I was a little bit, I didn't know if I should do that, because, I was with them, and I didn't want to go against my word or anything, because I stuck by my word, and he said it would be fine, and they talked to him, and they said it would be okay. So I went to Charlotte, and I was there for about a year, and they teamed me up with Jimmy Snuka, and that was one of the best times I ever had as far as the learning process of the business, and it turned out well for me, and like I said, I was real green. I mean, I was greener than heck, but being with Jimmy, he would help me, and I'd be every night, I would learn something, new or different, and I always, I was like a sponge when it came to that. It's something that you have to do over and over and over and over for like 5-6 years before you really get to know your way around in the ring, and that's how that happened.
Paul, did you know at the time that you were going to be one of the premier talents in the history of professional wrestling? I mean, you're teaming with Jimmy Snuka, who was also one of the all-time greats. Could you tell that this was just right for you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I knew that, you have to work with the best to be the best, and you have to get that opportunity, and, I had, like I said, I had the passion. Passion was there. There wasn't a problem with that. I mean, that's what I had going for me, is that I tried so hard and wanted to be good at it, wanted to be great at it.
When you were in Mid-Atlantic, what type of feedback did you get from the promotion? Were they telling you, hey, Paul, this is for you, you're going to be big time?
Well, I don't know if they tell you that. I don't think they tell you that, but, you get feedback, and most of the time it ain't good. A lot of times they don't tend to do that much, because it's a control thing. They want to have control over you, and nobody's ever had control over me, and it wasn't going to start in this business neither.
So, Paul, they were very disciplined at that time in keeping the talent mentally down so that the payoffs could be equally down. So you weren't getting any type of positive feedback. Let's say in the world of football, if you're a first-round draft choice, they're constantly patting you on the back. Different here, right?
Totally different. Well, that's the difference between class and no class, and most of these promoters had no class, very few of them.
Did you realize early on that payoff-wise the business was going to be difficult?
Well,
I mean, we've spoken to a lot of guys here from the 70s and the 80s, a lot of stars, a lot of legends, and they've all said that it was just extraordinary to go out and see a full house, and then the payoff would come.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and disappointing.
That's why I don't really like promoters. That's why I never got close to too many of them. I didn't, and I wasn't about to kiss none of them's ass, and I didn't. And absolutely, that was it. I mean, and the more you know that you're in a position that you help to draw that sellout crowd, and you busted your butt, and you bled, and you traveled all that miles, and you get a payoff that's a damn joke. Oh, it pissed me off all the time, and I'd get to the point that I couldn't take it anymore. So I'd usually just, I'd either get fired or I'd quit. So it didn't matter to me.
Paul, were there guys within the promotion, let's say in Mid-Atlantic, for example, Ric Flair or Blackjack Mulligan, that the promotion took care of, or was it universal across the board where they'd hold people down?
No, they took care of certain people. You had a certain amount of ass kissers, and they would kiss ass. I mean, it was so obvious, and they did, and then you see a lot of people that really their talents weren't that good, and you can judge. I mean, you could tell by the responses of the people, and it wasn't there, and they hold you back, and you could tell. It was very obvious. Once you've been in it a while, you see it, and then you had a lot of the other, say, old timers and stuff, and some of them would open up to you and teach you that or tell you things that you figure out. When your payoffs are bad, they've always said, you tell everything depends on your payoff, and if you're happy with what you're getting, then you're happy. If you're not, then you move on. And I moved on a lot. A lot. I think about 8 or 10 times in my career, I moved on.
You went down to Southeastern Championship Wrestling, teamed with Dick Slater, won the Southeastern Tag Team Championship, Jimmy Golden and Norvell Austin. Was it when you went down? That's in the Alabama area. Was that the same situation as Mid-Atlantic? Were you hoping to find a greener pasture, or did you find the same type of pastures?
Well, it's that way everywhere, but I had a guarantee. I got a certain amount of money. I was guaranteed that every week, and the trips were a lot shorter, and Dick Slater was one of the best heels in the business, period. And we got along great. He helped me a lot again. There was anytime you get to work with people like the Slaters and the Snookas and so on and so on, these guys were, they were proven commodities. They proved that they could draw money, and they knew how to draw money, and that's what I was learning how to do, is how to. And like I said, when you work with this kind of talent the best, then you're bound to take it in, and I did. And you work 7 nights a week and sometimes twice on Sunday. That's what's missing in the wrestling game now, is that half of these guys, they don't really go anywhere. There's nowhere for them to go. So they have a hard time learning. All they see is, jumping off the top rope or coming out of the ceiling and doing stuff like that. And all it is a cover-up for them not knowing how to work. And there's an art to it. And there's an art to it that very few people have it nowadays. Very few, if any, that really have that art to pissing people off. And I just seem to have a knack for it. The way I looked, my body, my look, I had everything. And that's why I did so good. So it's kind of like a racehorse, You get one that wins a Preakness. Look how many racehorses there is, and only one of them wins that race. So there's few, people people out there that really, really was good at it.
Well, you compare back then to today. You played pro ball in 1975, Mid-Atlantic around 78, 79. You're in Southeastern. That's 4 years of preparation. A very small percentage of the country even has heard of Paul Orndorff. Today, like you said, they just throw guys right into the main events, and the results are obvious. There are no Paul Orndorff.
No, not even close. There really wasn't back then that much. Simply because of my style, I said that, when I went to these places, I said to myself, I want to be different than everybody else. And I just took advantage of a God-gifted talent, and I had aggression, I had intimidation, I had the body, and I was willing to do whatever it took for that to get across into that. And it took a while, and every night I was out in the ring, I was just kept adding to my repertoire and kept adding and trying and experimenting, and finally I got it all together, After about 7 years, 6, 7, 8 years, I started getting it all together, and from then on, I couldn't be denied.
Paul, you started with Mid-South. What were your initial impressions of the operation in Louisiana, Mississippi?
Well, I learned more there than anywhere, because I was there off and on for about a 4 or 5 year period. And Bill Watts, he was a hard ass. He would all the time get on me, and he was like a coach to me. A lot of people didn't care for him, and I had my disagreements with him. I quit, and I got fired with him, but I still, anytime I wanted to go back there, I had an open door, and I was taught a lot, and I worked with Ernie Ladd a lot. Even back then when Ernie was, he was all crippled up and everything, but he just gave me a big chance, and he gave me my biggest chance that I ever had. Ernie and, Ernie was the booker. Of course, Bill was the owner, and he was a hands-on owner, and but I got along with Bill good. I mean, we got along good, and I enjoyed it. A lot of hard work, though, and we started with the crew we had, and we had a lot of guys that wanted to work, and didn't matter about how many miles you travel. I mean, I traveled 500 miles, 600 miles one way some nights, and then a lot of times I got a $50 payoff or a $75 payoff, and you have to be dedicated, totally 100% dedicated. And a lot of the guys, I ain't running them down, but a lot of them weren't dedicated. All they cared about is getting a paycheck and say they were a wrestle and had a 6-pack of beer every night, and they were happy. And I wasn't happy. I wanted to make money, and I felt like I was in an opportunity that I could make money, and eventually I did. And the more I learned, and the more I did, and the more I listened, it all started coming together. So there was a plan in my mind. I had a plan. Without a plan, you're nothing. If you just depend on you just walking out there and thinking you're going to be a star and everything, then you won't get, well, I couldn't do it. I got pride in what I do, and I took a lot of pride in it, a lot of pride. And when I had a bad match or something, I didn't like that, and I'd say, well, it ain't going to happen tomorrow night, and I got better. And a lot of times I had to work harder than the guy that I was with, because, like I said, some of them could have cared less how much, well, I ain't going to say that. They still wanted to make money, but they didn't do the extra that you need, and you need to give that 100%. I remember Eddie Graham told me, he said, when you go out there every night, you give your best, because those people out there are buying a ticket, and they're hard-working people, and give them their money's worth. And that always stuck from me from day one, and I tried to do that.
Well, we've been in the process of interviewing Cowboy Bill Watts, and he told me, we interviewed him yesterday morning, and he said Paul Orndorff, when it came to work ethic and intensity, was second to none. And, he credited you with being a huge help to Mid-South in the early days.
Well, it's true. That's the way I was. And I think my name and my reputation got out there, and more people were, I had a place to go anytime I wanted to. Just like Bob Orton Sr. told me, like I said, he said, if you learn how to work, they can't deny you. And he was right. They couldn't deny you. And I didn't get denied. Of course, I burnt bridges. I was pretty good at burning bridges, because I said to myself, I'll never go back there, so I didn't give a heck. So I didn't.
Paul, do you feel like you burned bridges for justifiable reasons in retrospect?
No, I mean, yeah, I didn't handle things the right way a lot of times. There should be a business side, and not everything is my way. And, of course, you learn that in life, and I'm almost 60 years old now, and I finally realized that. So, it's best not to, unless you're just so overwhelmed in doing it, then you got to do what you got to do. But I think a lot of it had to do with just not, talking things over. And whenever I felt like I was being mistreated is when I did that. And if I thought I was being mistreated, then they could kiss my butt, and that's the way I felt about it. And I think that a lot of us guys, many of them, did get mistreated. First of all, an insult when it comes to some of your payoffs. See, that's being mistreated to me. And when I saw that, some of the payoffs for the hard work that I was trying to do, and a lot of guys were doing, and you get these silly payoffs, $15, $20 sometimes. That's garbage. They're treating you like garbage, so they need to be treated the same way. And that's what I did.
See, Paul, you say that, maybe you handled things incorrectly, but people have to realize you're giving up your body every night. You're never the same after you get out of a match. So this must have been weighing on your mind. Even at that young age, you're starting to feel the pain of time, and not to be paid properly. It's a tough thing. It's a tough thing for a young guy to handle.
That's right. It was. And they didn't care. All they cared about was how big the crowd was and how much money they could half of them take when, all they cared about is how they could figure in that you'd make less. And that's what it was an insult sometimes. It was an outright insult because they always got their money no matter what. And a lot of times we didn't.
Paul, did you have questions about the NWA early on, how they had carved up the United States? It wasn't competitive. Did you think, this isn't really fair?
No, not really.
Yeah.
I never thought of it like that. I mean, they were dominant. I mean, they were the one. And quite frankly, they were the best.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. The best workers that been in this business came right out of Tampa, Florida. And there's a ton of them. And when I broke in, it was tough getting in there. Now, they just didn't open the doors in there. I mean, I went through hell for about 8 months, and I mean hell. And I've been to a lot of the pro camps and in college and high school and junior high school football, and it was tougher than all them. I mean, holy cow, I went, my God. And that is what really branded by working hard and earn what you got. And I did that, but I wasn't getting paid for what I did sometimes.
Paul, you stuck with the business, though. Many people have told me that, yes, you and other stars at the time were cheated. Why did you stick with it? You didn't like the alternatives of a non-athletic career, or did you think maybe this could get better if I keep, up the work ethic, the intensity?
Well, that was the whole thing that kept me going. It was that. If I had known anything else that it wouldn't, I don't know if I would have stayed in it. And I surely wouldn't have worked as hard as I did, probably. But no, I always thought that it would get better and that I would be one of the ones that made it and got paid for it. So that was my guiding light.
Well, you got a big national break in 1982 when you went into Georgia Championship Wrestling because it was televised on TBS, and most of the country, including myself, finally got to see you. And you were impressive. You were very impressive at the time. You had really put your entire game together, almost entire game together.
Right.
Yeah. And you had big feuds with Buzz Sawyer, Nature Boy Ric Flair, the Super Destroyer. In fact, I remember you were on the very first main event on TV the week that Georgia Championship Wrestling changed its name to World Championship Wrestling. Do you remember that?
Yes. I don't remember the match, but I do remember that when we did that.
You wrestled the Super Destroyer.
Yes.
Yeah. What was it like with Jim Barnett and Ole Anderson in Georgia?
I liked him. Jim Barnett was good with the money, or as good as it can get, and I liked Ole. He was a straight guy. He was a right up front guy, and And, you know, if he said you did something good, he'd tell you, and if you didn't, he'd tell you. So I had no problems with Ole at all, and I liked him. So we got along good. And he was that type. He had that kind of mentality as I did, too, you know. His kind of work was nothing real fancy, but it was hard, aggressive, and, you know, maybe not to my speed, but we were similar in some ways.
Paul, I remember even during TV matches, you were full game on. Was there an exhaustion that started to set in with you, or were you just past that? You just wanted the business so bad, and this was an opportunity at national television that you didn't care?
That's exactly what you did. That's what I did. I mean, you get to show your stuff when you're on TV, and you just don't have bad night or days on TV, whatever it may be. That's when you got to show your stuff, and you have a short amount of time to do it in, and you absolutely have to have everything, you know, hitting on all cylinders. And there's really not a lot of room for error because you're on TV. You're in that spotlight, and everybody's watching you. And my intensity would come up a level, a notch or two.
Paul, when you were on TBS next to Gordon Solie doing an interview, you must have realized you're going nationwide and even worldwide. Was this the big opportunity, exposure-wise, you were looking for?
Absolutely. That was, you know, I mean, everywhere you went, and how you really started to feel that is when we started going to Ohio and Cincinnati and different places, you know, other than Georgia. People you would get an applause or you get a reaction that normally it takes, you know, you build that every week or every night somewhere, and it takes 6 to 8 weeks before the people really, really get with you. And you could instantly go into a state and they were with you already. So that was my way of seeing how that national TV, how powerful it was and what it could do. And we had a heck of a crew in Georgia. I mean, we had one heck of a crew. I mean, we was good as it gets anywhere. So when you have that kind of talent, it was good. It was real good.
Paul, you said earlier in your career, sometimes you'd be in the dressing room and some of the guys just didn't take it seriously. But I remember Georgia at that time, everyone was working. They were working their butts off. And you noticed that. Did you, when you walked into the locker room, did you have your head up and say, man, these guys, they're taking it, they're doing it too?
Yep, sure did. And that's what, you know, Ole was all about too. Ole wasn't, but he, you know, you may not have all the skills yet and have everything, and I didn't. I mean, I was going on, you know, energy, a lot of it. I mean, just if you do something wrong, as long as you're doing something, and that was my mentality, and that's what I did. And then watching all the matches, I was always told that you should watch every match every night, and you pick a little bit of this from a person, and a little bit of that, and a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and then you invent some stuff on your own. And I was doing that now, and I was far from as good as I was going to get, but I was getting a lot better, and that helped a lot. That Georgia helped an awful lot.
At the time, did you have any idea that maybe Georgia or World Championship Wrestling could go national? Was there any talk about that, or were you so focused on the in-ring performance that it really wasn't something you were even considering?
The world thing didn't happen till, you know, it happened, but it wasn't in the beginning.
Yeah.
Until I got a phone call one night, and Ernie Ladd had called me and said that Vince McMahon wants to talk to you. And I said, I don't really want to go there, you know, blah, 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 blah. And I did. Let me back up a little bit. I was in the Fuller's territory, and he was running Pensacola and parts of Alabama and stuff, and I was with them, Ron Fuller.
Yeah.
And I had gotten a call just before I left to go there, and I was in Georgia, and I went there, and I didn't call Vince McMahon that time. But then later on, I did get a call from him. I can't remember where I was at. I don't remember what territory, but I'm probably confusing you because I'm backing up here because I'm trying to think of all this. And but anyway, I got another call, and Ernie said that Senior wanted to talk to me. So I did call him this time, and this was about 8 months before the opening of World Championship Wrestling. And
okay, yeah.
He was in Miami, and I called him, and he said, we want to have it, we want to bring you in, and told me what they were doing, and this and that, and whatever. And during this time, I told him that, Ole and, God, what's his name?
Barnett?
Yeah. And
Jim Barnett, yeah.
They were pushing me to try to sign a contract. Well, doing this went on for several months, and then finally I called Mr., I'm losing my train of thought here. Mr. McMahon.
McMahon Sr., yeah.
Yeah, I called him back and said, they want me to sign this contract. And I said, if I'm coming up with you, I can't, He said, don't sign it. And he said, I'll send you to Japan. And I had an 8-month period, and I said, well, if I tell them this, they're going to want me to leave right then. And they did. And so I left, and he sent me to Japan about, 5 times, I think, in the 8 months. And that worked out really good for me. And then I was there the first night in Allentown, Pennsylvania, when World Championship Wrestling started.
With the WWF at the time. Paul, was Vince McMahon Sr. aware that Vince was going to go national? I mean, from what you're saying here, he kind of did.
Yeah. But he only had a short time to live. He was dying of cancer. And his son, Vinny took over then.
Did you ever personally meet Vince Sr.?
Yes. I met him that night in Allentown, and that's when he handed over the reins to Vince.
Wow. Because you were one of the first stars that was brought into the new WWF. You came in late 83, and that's when Vince headed into St. Louis, and of course after that went into Minneapolis. So you were going to be one. Did they tell you were going to be one of the cornerstones of this new national push?
He told me that you would be given an opportunity and that you will be making money. He said you'll make more money than you've ever made before, and that was good enough for me. And at that point is when I took my body to another level. I could really, really see that something could really be made with it, and Vince liked good bodies, and I knew that. And I molded myself and got myself, I dieted more. I say dieted. I just ate better food, and I just had a plan, and I had this plan in my mind, and for once in my life, it worked, and it really worked out good for me.
I remember at the time the WWF was not known for work rate, and when you came in, you had a clear advantage over most of the other talent in that you were as hardcore NWA as it got, and you went every night. So even if they didn't plan on making you one of the cornerstones, you just became one.
Right, and you said it just the way it was, just like that. They couldn't deny me. Yeah. And I know that I never really watched New York wrestling or any of those guys. I heard of some of the names, but I really never watched it because I didn't like it, and it wasn't my style of wrestling. It wasn't like the Georgia wrestling, the NWA wrestling. To me, it wasn't. And I looked at the new guys. I didn't really pay a lot of attention to the older guys because they didn't do a lot. And with guys that was in that whole class of wrestlers, late 70s and in the 80s, I would watch them, and I said, I'm going to be different than any other wrestler that's up there. And that's when I just kicked it into the other gear. My body, I've been working out so hard in the gym. I mean, I worked out every day hard. I didn't do a lot of drinking or anything. So I molded, shaped, and I got it to where I wanted it. Vince saw it. He went, holy cow, we got something here. And then it just worked out. It just worked out. And it wasn't given to me. I earned it. Every nickel that I ever made, every spot that I ever was put in or that I earned, it wasn't given to me. I wasn't friends with none of the promoters. I didn't hobnob with them like a lot of them do. And I just stayed away from them. I didn't want to be a part of that. I didn't want to be known for that.
Well, if anything, you did too well, because within a month, you're in the main events, and you're going against Hulk Hogan. This is early on in the Hogan-Orndorff feud, and Hogan had to win because Vince had the entire promotion mentally on Hogan's back at the time. What was your initial impression of Hogan compared with you as an in-ring talent?
I was better.
Yeah.
I think I could have, the belt, I could have made it mean more. I could have, he was more show business. He wasn't a bad worker, but to me, he wasn't as, he just didn't have the athletic skills to do what I could do, and he didn't have my intensity. And he was strictly going on, basically, the TV and interviews and the big push, and he had the big push, and that's just the way it was. But I said to myself, buddy, I'm gonna show them that I can do it just through my work skills, and I did it, and I know I did it, because I used to get people tell me all the time, you're, and it was getting to the point that they were cheering me more than him, and I knew that wasn't good.
And they had Hogan beat you in this initial feud, but to show how determined you were, Paul, that wasn't the end.
Nope.
Because, a lot of guys who Hogan dispensed of early on, they just kind of fell by the wayside.
Right.
You came back, and you came back quickly. Now, they did it in a little bit different manner. You did it with Roddy Piper, and Bob Orton.
Right.
And you got into that tag team situation. And any memories of that?
Yeah, well, they were throttling me, and I knew it. It was disheartening, but on the other hand, I was making money. So I guess that's what kept me going, was the paycheck, because I was making huge amounts of money. And, you're in this business, and I even said it was to make money. And I had to really fall back on that, and I really had to not dwell on it too much, because there's nothing I could do about it. And so I knew that I had to keep doing what I was doing and just keep looking at that paycheck every week. And that's kind of what kept me going.
Paul, did you ever try and take Vince McMahon aside and say, ask for, you were in the top spot even after you lost to Hogan, but did you ever try and talk to him?
A little bit, yeah. But the way his contract was and everything, and he was a man of his word. He kept his word, and he had everything built around him. So I knew that really wasn't going to change. So I guess second best would be okay, and I was in that range. I was right up there behind him for a while, So, you just don't always work out. You could be the best at something, but still not be up there with them. That's just the way it was.
Well,
that's not, I just wish I had gotten that chance. I think I could have done as good or better. I really do, because I could work with anybody, and they would have had a hell of a match. I don't care who it was with, and I just think that the belt could have meant more than what it did. I think the best workers should have the belt, but nowadays it's just the opposite.
When you started teaming with Hogan, did you know that there was going to be a turn coming and that you would get another run against him?
I kind of figured that. Yeah. They'd be crazy if they didn't.
They finally turned you against Hogan in a famous national TV angle. And what followed is wrestling history that still hasn't been topped to this day.
That's right.
Incredible houses, incredible attendance, incredible, even for you, payoffs. 68,000 people in Toronto for just a normal show. It really solidified Vince in the number one position.
It sure did, and made me feel good, because we all were making money. The guys on the first match were making money, and I'm a team player pretty much, and everybody was making. The attitude of the guys and the work, and it was all good. To me, that was one of the best times of my life, if not the best. But tell you, it was hard, tough being on the road 7 nights a week. I was working 7 nights a week, away from my family. They'd only give me 2 days a week. 2 days off every 6 weeks, and I had to beg for them. And he just worked me in the ground. He just wore me out.
Paul, did Vince ever dangle the title in front of you and say, there's a chance that we could put the championship on you?
No, they wanted to give me one of them other belts, and I didn't even want it. I didn't even want it. I'd be better off without it. If I couldn't get, that one, then I didn't want it. So I did.
December 14th, 1986, Hartford, Connecticut. You and Hulk Hogan in the cage being taped for Saturday night's main event. Incredible match. And, of course, that famous finish where you both went down simultaneously. Paul, I've heard that you thought about maybe coming down first. Was that rumor true?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I thought about it, but I couldn't do that. That wouldn't be the right thing to do, and I tried to do the right thing. But I had a lot of guys said, Paul, you ought to go down first. You ought to drop down first. and I could have very easily slipped and hit the thing first. But
what would they have done, Paul? I mean, that would have changed the entire course of wrestling history.
Well, I tell you what, I'd probably do it now.
Yeah.
They probably take the film and dub it and do something to it.
I don't know.
Or they've been smart. They would have went along with it.
I think they would have went along with it. Vince you might have come back to the dressing room. He might ask you to redo the finish, but I could just tell talking to you that you might have just said, "That's it. I'm heading home tonight."
I would have. I mean, I tell you what, I had the opportunity to do it, but my loyalty, I thought about it. I did think about it, but I didn't think too long. You know, for them to trust me to do that and then not do it wouldn't have been the right thing to do. And you know, I was friends with Terry, and of course he would have done it maybe, but
yeah.
I didn't. I did my job, and I got paid for it.
Paul, at the time the NWA was disintegrating, was that part of the decision? Was that it looked like Vince was going to be the only game in town?
Well, you know, these other promoters had the opportunity to work with Vince, because I remember Vince when we started going into Georgia and that. I mean, he had the opportunity to work with him, or at least that's what I heard. And they didn't do it. So they chose rather to go out of business than because at that point we had all the best talent. You still had some talent that was still with the NWA, you know. But all in all, we had the best talent because the guys go where the money is. It's that simple. And even though I gambled, I was a gambler. I mean, I don't gamble, but I like to go somewhere where they need help, where you can be noticed. I mean, what's more fulfilling than to go to a territory that's down, and then 6 weeks or so, you're starting to get sellouts, and the gate's starting to come up, and everybody's starting to make a little money. That's what I got satisfaction with, and it meant a lot to me to go into a place that was half dead, and then to bring it back up, to build that and to bring it back up, and that's what I like to do.
Paul, do you feel like you brought the others' games up as well? They'd see you in action in the ring and feel like, you know, I've got to do better because this guy is setting the standard.
I've heard that before. Whether I did, I don't know. But I'll tell you this, if I was before you and you were the main event, you had hell to follow. I'm going to tell you that. And I've seen a lot of main events that were flat compared to my match with somebody before the main event. So I like to do that. I like to see them go out there and top it. And a lot of times it didn't happen. Many times it didn't happen because the main event was on the semi-main event.
Paul, you said earlier in your career the promoters wouldn't give you a pat on the back. Did Vince credit you with what you were doing at the time?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And Bill Watts did too.
Okay.
Bill Watts did too. You know, he was good about it. And Ole did. Ole did too. Yeah, Ole let you know when you had a good one. And you've got to give people praise sometimes. You know, you do. And I don't care what it is. You've got to praise somebody. That gives them, you know, and those guys knew how to do it. I mean, they weren't saying it just say it because they knew it was money for them. I mean, they knew that they had, you know, it could be money for all of us, not just me, but them and everybody. I mean, everybody is a winner to a point, but, and I wasn't the only guy that thought like that. I mean, there was other guys out there. You know, I ain't taking all the credit by no means, but I tell you what, I tried to do it every daggum night because I wanted to be the best.
Well, one of the things that made you special, Paul, was that you had the in-ring ability like a Bob Orton, who was great in-ring, but Bob really didn't have it outside of the ring. You had it in the ring and outside of the ring, which was rare for the type of talent you had. Hogan didn't have the in-ring. Superstar Billy Graham didn't have the in-ring, but you had it.
Well, it's called the total package. You know, for a good football player, when you get drafted in the NFL, whatever position you're playing, you better be good at it and one of the best. And, you know, I could run, I could catch a ball, and I could block. And how many fullbacks in the NFL do you see nowadays that can do all three and do them well? There's only a couple anymore, a true fullback. And that's the guy that blocks and pounds in there all the time for the halfback. And that's the role I've played. And and I liked it. A lot of guys don't like to block. It's not you go block a 270, 80, 90-pound guy, and you weigh 235, 230, and you go in there and do it. I mean, what's that tell you? I mean, to me, I liked that. I mean, I liked it, and that was my attitude, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the contact, and with the wrestling, even though there wasn't a lot of contact, there was contact, but I enjoyed just reliving my old football days to a point, and I think that's what I was doing, because I could go 20 minutes, I could go 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and stay the same speed, and I had that ability to not tire out and to keep going, and that's what made me different. That's what made me different. Plus, I had the body to go with it and look. I had to look. I had it. It was just a God-gifted thing that I took advantage of. God gave it to me, and I took advantage of it.
Paul, when you injured your arm, was it a weightlifting accident?
No.
Oh, it wasn't?
No.
In ring?
Yes. One of the guys was on something one night, which hadn't been the first time, and I got kicked under the chin, and it whipped my neck back so bad, that's what started it. That's what did it. And I worked. I was in the main events with Hogan a lot, and I worked when I should have had the operation the next day. And just to show you how stupid I was, and I'm mad at myself to this very day that I would let that go on. And I didn't even tell nobody. I never told Vince, never said nothing, and my arm just started shrinking, and I was in so much pain. And I'm talking about pain now. I done chipped a big bone out of my neck and didn't go get surgery till years later. And then finally, I got it done. And the doctor he shook his head. He said, my God, people don't know what I went through, the pain I suffered, and then the stupidity that I had for this business to not get it taken care of. I could have been paralyzed every night that I went out there, and I didn't slow up a bit like a fool because the money was the driving force, and I made a bad mistake.
Paul, were you afraid? Did you sit in the locker room and, your neck, oh man, my arm, or were you beyond fear at the time?
No, I wasn't beyond fear. I had a family, man. I just bought a new home, and if you don't work, you don't get paid, and that was the mentality I had, and I guess I just kept going till I couldn't go no more, and then finally I couldn't go no more, and then that's when I kind of just walked out, and that's what I didn't handle the right way, is when I walked out from Vince. I just walked away. And
Paul, did you walk away because the pain, sometimes if you're really hurt, the pain is so great that you just can't even think straight.
Yeah, it was a lot of that. And here I'd been working for about 6-7 months with this thing. Vince never knew it. I didn't tell him, and I'd put elbow pads and I'd pull them up over my arm to hide it, to hide my arm shrinking, because it got down to like 14 inches, and it went from around 20 inches to 14 inches. And I never really, to this day, got to tell Vince why I did that, and he holds it against me. I don't think he knows any difference.
So by trying to be a great soldier, you, in essence, destroyed your relationship with Vince.
Yes, that's exactly what I did.
Did you go to a doctor during the 6-month period and try and find out what was going on, or did you not even want to hear?
I didn't want to hear it. But then I did finally go to a doctor, and he said you needed surgery, and I didn't do it. It was me. It was my fault. And if I had gotten surgery back then, it might have saved my arm and all this damage. I mean, to this day, I can't even curl 5 pounds. I mean, I got a serious nerve damage here, and then I heard it 2 times more after that. And the last one, the doctor said, Paul, you're done. You are done. Hear me. You cannot go back. You can be paralyzed. This is how serious it got. I've had 3 neck surgeries, and my spinal column and my neck I got nuts, bolts, screws, you name it, I got it. It's just about as bad as humanly possible without being in a wheelchair and on a breathing machine. But that was that old school. That was my mentality. That was my stupidity. And that's where I am today.
Paul, they put you with Sir Oliver Humperdinck as your manager, and I remember watching on TV, and at the time I really didn't know about your arm. Your physique seemed to be changing a bit, but I remember just thinking, how could you go from the main event with Hogan, really the number one talent in WWF, and it seemed like they were really pushing you down. Was it that they were pushing you down, or you just weren't able to go?
I wasn't able to go. I wasn't able. The mental anguish I was going through, seeing my body and seeing everything that I could do, trying to protect my neck as much as I possibly could, I couldn't do it no more. I just couldn't do it no more. I just can't. I mean, I got a serious. I don't know if people don't realize how serious that this was and is, and it's serious. You got to figure. I've had my neck operated on 3 times, and that's pretty serious. I mean, we're talking about your spinal column, and I wasn't very smart.
Paul, I don't think people do realize, because
they don't.
I've been a fan for a long time, and I watched wrestling, and it wasn't until I started doing these interviews, and every single legend from the 70s and 80s, they always come back to the fact of pain, 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 and pain to this day. And you going out there every night at 120% and continuing when you should have stopped for a long-term rest. I mean, you've had it as severely as anyone, and I just don't think people can understand it.
Yeah, and another thing, too, when I was in New York, that I had the opportunity to do the Rambo movie. They flew me to California to meet Stallone. I had about 4 different movie parts, and he also told me that if you do this, you'll be the next Rocky. And I told Vince about it, and he wouldn't let me go. He talked me out of it, and I'd only been gone for 6 weeks with a 2-week extension to do the movie in Mexico, and that would have it would have given me some rest, and I wouldn't have got hurt possibly, because that happened right after that. And nowadays he lets guys do movie parts and this and that, but you see, I didn't do that because I felt obligated to him. And if I made any one mistake in my life, it was that I didn't go do that movie with Stallone. He told me, he said, you have a career in the movie. And I look back on that, and then it brings tears to my eyes sometimes that I relived this, and I talk about it every now and then, but I just wish I had done that movie, because that would have put me at a whole new level. That would have put me beyond Hogan or anybody else, because the movies have never seen anybody kind of the way that I am, with all that aggression and stuff, and that could control it. It was controlled aggression, and I mean, Stallone liked me. I met his brother, I met his wife, met them all, and did a couple of shoots, different things, and my God, he flipping it seemed like, or either that he was bullshitting me, I don't know, but I really believe that. I mean, he told me when I got through doing the thing, he said, you got the part. He said, I'll have our people call you for the flight arrangements and this and that, and I told Vince about it. He yelled and this, and I didn't do it.
Paul, a lot of wrestlers have tried to do movies, but most of them, there's always this comedic edge to it. Hulk Hogan, a comedy, even The Rock, Dwayne Johnson today, comedy. There was nothing comedic about Paul Orndorff. You would have been something that the movies had never seen before coming out of wrestling.
I know it. See, I know it. And I had that aggression that I could do it without doing it. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
The looks on your face, expression has a lot to do with what you're doing when it comes to the movies. And wrestling is a mirror of acting. And that's what I could have done. God knows what that would have done. See, Vince knew that if I got into it, that I wouldn't be there with him. And that's my thinking. And that's exactly what would have happened, because I wouldn't have done it no more. I would have stuck with it. Of course, I might have wrestled some, but I think it would have opened some doors for me. That would have been unbelievable. The thing is, I don't know, because I didn't try it, and I didn't get the opportunity. Yeah, I could have quit, but then what? And I didn't think ahead enough to know that if I would have done that movie, that would have opened up so many doors, so many places, and I didn't do it.
Paul, when he told you no, did your heart drop, or did you expect it?
I expected it, and I guess when he told me no, that I'd be taken care of forever, pretty much, and he told me that I would be, that you'll never have to get another job, but the way I left, but yet he don't know all the reasons. See, he didn't, and that bothers me, that he really didn't know why I did it the way I did it. You know, everybody's different, and my mentality, I'm kind of hot-tempered, and a lot of times I don't think when I do something, I do it, and it's not always right. You can ask my wife that, and I did what I did, and I'm living with it. It's over.
Paul, it's been a real pleasure talking with you. I wanted to discuss the first half of your career. You know, I would compare what happened to you to, let's say, if Muhammad Ali in boxing had broken his hand and had continued to fight with a broken hand. I mean, I think I've heard you say that you weren't one of the top guys, that you were. What have you called yourself, a workhorse in wrestling?
Yes.
And I really don't see it that way, because I see you as being one of the top 10 or 15 stars in the history of the sport. Very rare that someone had the outside the ring charisma you had and the in-ring performance. Jimmy Snuka, great in the ring, but outside the ring couldn't cut an interview to save his life.
Right.
And you had both sides. It's very rare, and I remember even at that time thinking, boy, I hope that Paul doesn't get pushed aside when they teamed you with Sir Oliver Humperdinck, and indeed that's what happened, and difficult time in wrestling, I would say.
Yeah, but when you get a bunch of lowlifes and people with no class, people with not even an eye for athletic ability, people that paid the price on a football field, that paid the price in the ring every night, got crappy payoffs, did everything he was supposed to do, may not liked it, but I did everything somebody that I've ever been asked to do. I never, ever said I'm not doing a job. Never, ever, ever. I always did it. Now, I might give you some crap about it, but I did it. And
it was a mistake, though, wasn't it?
Yeah.
See, Hogan didn't do that.
No, he sure didn't. He wouldn't do a job. And because he couldn't afford to, you see. He couldn't afford to do a job, whereas I could. And they knew it because I could do a job one night, still draw a house the next night. And the next time I came back to the house I did the job in, I still drew a house. So,
Paul, do you wish you'd called their bluff?
Huh?
Do you wish you'd called their bluff and just said, you know what, I'm not going to do it?
That's right. I wish I had them.
See, I think you had the drawing power that they would have had to, at some point, gone along with you.
Yeah, they would have. Because, once you've been in this business a while, you know what's good for you, what can draw for you, and who you're going to work with and who you can draw with. When they put you with a piece of shit and then you were supposed to draw with a piece of shit, that means I have to work 3 times as hard to make up for that. And that's where their mentality wasn't that good. They thought they knew it all. The only reason they have what they had is because they owned the place and they could do it. But they weren't really smart about it. And they played favorites. They all do. Everybody does. And that's okay. But whenever you got a guy that can go out and bust his ass like that every daggum night of the week, and do it night after night, year after year, I guess what happens is they get afraid of you.
Paul, what was it about you that you weren't one of their favorites? I would think having someone like you on the roster, was it that you just gave everything you had and you never pushed back?
Yeah, I didn't push back as much as I should have. I should have pushed back more. But, when somebody's writing your paycheck, you got to be careful. And I did just enough. And I tell you, if Paul Orndorff was ever reborn again or ever came back out there, he sure wouldn't do some things he done. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, it's really amazing. A lot of people say Paul has, you were criticized in 2005 at the Hall of Fame induction because you weren't, all into it with Hogan and clapping. But here you were giving up yourself, and yet you paid the price for it. I think that there's a little bit of a perception problem. You went along with everything Vince wanted to do. It gave up your movie opportunity, and yet you're the bad guy.
Yep.
Such is life. Paul, it's been a real pleasure.
Same here.
I've really enjoyed talking to you. I've wanted to talk to you for a long time. You're one of my heroes in wrestling and heroes of a lot of our listeners because I've been talking about having you on, and everyone's like, when's Paul going to be on? And now Paul's been on, and Paul, thank you so much.
You're quite welcome. Anytime. We'll do it again.
Talk to you soon, Paul. Thank you so much.
Okay, buddy.
Bye-bye.
Bye.